You know, Dean, a few weeks ago, we discussed the power shift in retail from stores to the people.
Yes.
But that's not the only industry where people are kind of taking some control from business. You know, I'd say in the world of like supply chain, especially in warehousing, manufacturing, distribution, delivery, there's a lot of, power to the people happening there. But as you noted in our episode today, a little bit of that's starting to swing back the other way.
Right.
Businesses are trying to focus a little bit more on their own productivity and their goals too. But we still need to meet a little bit of a happy medium in the middle.
Yes.
So, we got this challenging labor market. There's more pressure to make, distribute, and deliver products faster than ever because we, the customer, consumers, are demanding that. So that's where automation can kind of help out. It can come in and augment people again, not as a replacement.
Fill in some of those gaps.
Fill in some gaps, do a little augmenting, but it makes it also important though that we understand the human element and the aspect of that of why we should be putting these automation and AI.
We're not going away, are we, humans?
I don't think. I mean, not as far as I know. We haven't reached that singularity or whatever that we haven't built Skynet yet.
Well, I haven't walked in and Arnold Schwarzenegger was in my seat.
Exactly.
Yet. So that's good news.
Clearly, the machines haven't decided that we are irrelevant.
Right.
Just yet.
Not yet.
We might get there. All right. Well, today on the show, we've got Newcastle's Kevin Ledversis and Honeywell's Kelley Wood. They're going to be sharing their thoughts on the topic. They're going to talk about what's changed in the labor market post-pandemic. What are supply chain businesses saying about automating their workforce? Is AI a game changer or just a new complication in the quest for balancing workforce efficiency and productivity? Lots of good stuff to talk about today. A great conversation with a couple of great folks who, by the way, asked to be on the podcast.
Yes.
We didn't bully anyone with this one. They actually
right.
asked to be here. So
love it.
That said, I'm John Martin.
I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to BlueStar Nation. BlueStar Nation is brought to you by ELO and their Quick Ship program, expediting deliveries of select Intel-based all-in-one touchscreen computers. The Quick Ship initiative promises readily available inventory of ELO POS and iSeries 2 models with various processors, memory, and storage options. Additionally, they include Celeron models in the program at reduced prices. That's pretty cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Ship fast, good prices.
Yep.
We can appreciate
lower
that.
prices even. Yes.
Exactly.
Would you say? Yes.
So ELO will ship applicable SKUs to BlueStar within 10 business days. Check out the link in the show notes for a list of eligible products. The Quick Ship program is limited to North America and Latin America in quantities of 20 units or less. Contact the BlueStar ELO team with any questions. All right, our first guest today is Kevin Ledversis. He is the VP of Sales for Newcastle Systems.
Yep.
Kevin, welcome to the pod. It's your first time on, but you're actually the one who reached out and asked to do this, which, to be honest, that doesn't happen a lot. We're usually begging other people to come on here. So the fact that you said, "Hey guys, I'd like to be on the podcast," that's notable. So tell us a little.
He gets a T-shirt too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Tell us a little about your background and why you felt the need to come on here and talk about stuff.
Yeah. So I've been a long time barcoder. I'm not going to date myself, but many generations, and still love it, still passionate about the industry. And actually, John, you sort of inspired me at VARTech when you and James had your session and you're talking about this venue and how some of the subjects may not be on point, and it's hard to get it right all the time. I think you guys said you've done this 200 and something times, right? But I just thought that we were going through a storytelling process with a consultant that really lined up well with the industry. And actually at VARTech, I asked Kelley what she thought about the tagline. Caught her off guard and just say, "What do you think of this?" And the human element of automation. And she's like, "Yeah, spot on. Here's why." So I thought it was relevant, and I thought it would add some value to the channel partners. And we're all in this together. So if I can add some value, I figured, why not do that?
Nice.
Perfect. Yeah, I'd like to hear it. Our other guest is Kelley Wood. You might remember her. She was on the pod. It's been a couple years back now, I think, as we were kind of climbing out of the pandemic. We were talking about the labor crisis, which oddly enough, we still kind of are talking about that in a different way. And we'll get into that in this episode too. She is the Director of Customer Marketing at Honeywell. Kelley, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you back. What have you been up to the last couple of years? You were just telling us before we started recording that you've been absurdly busy lately. I'm sure your job is keeping you hopping.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back. It's great to be here. Always enjoy spending time with you all three of you. Yes, since I've been here, I've actually switched jobs. Prior to last time I was here, I was focused in a global role, really digging into the insights and what was happening in the industry. since then, now I moved into a director role focused just on US and Canada. What's great about that, though, is although I'm still looking at what's happening in the industry, I'm just doing it in a region, and it's gotten me a lot closer to what's happening with the end users and also with our partners. So it's a different perspective for sure, much closer to the issues versus further away. So busy in a different way. I'm closer to the product. I'm closer to the customers. I'm closer to everything.
Closer to the action. There you go.
That's
right.
For sure.
Yeah, you'd think not being global would be a little less hectic, but you just took a different kind of hectic track, I think, that you got into here. So
absolutely.
All right, well then let's dig into this conversation and that tagline, Kevin, you're referencing, this idea of the human element of automation, of understanding that, like, hey, automation's great, it's good stuff, we appreciate what it can bring to us, but humans still matter too. Like we haven't been supplanted by the machines just yet. So Kelley, I want to start with you though, because the last time I mentioned, the last time you were on, we were talking all about this labor crisis. We were talking about what was happening post-pandemic, that people were changing the way they were working, and a lot of employers, especially in supply chain and warehousing, manufacturing, were struggling to get folks in. What's changed since then? Has it changed? And how's technology starting to play a part in the way businesses are coping with the labor environment?
Well, you kind of hit on it in the beginning. There's still a shortage. People are still struggling to get people in. One of the biggest differences that, at least that I'm seeing, is that whenever I was here last time and whenever I talked last time, there was a real focus on the recruitment, the retention. How am I getting people in? The conversations around the wages, the worker experience, and how are we going to get people in here and make them happy and want them to stay? It's so truly competitive and hard to get them in. And that's still all there. That truly is. None of that has changed. What I'm seeing is slightly shifting a little bit more, though, is that businesses are becoming a little bit more realistic. And although they know that that's important and they need to focus on it, they're also realizing they have business outcomes that they got to focus on as well. So as much as they want to focus on the well-being and then the workforce experience, and they talk the talk, there's a little bit more of the conversation that's lending towards the productivity, and those buzzwords, the business outcomes, are starting to probably rise a little bit more in the conversations versus that other nice to haves that are really important to the workforce. We just had our sales kickoff last week, and one of our industry partners brought up a report that Accenture just put out, and they were talking about just that sort of same thing about workforce, and where it looked at workforce balance and trust and all those sorts of things, and where work-life balance and my wellness, it dropped significantly in trust from employees, where they said that they felt that their employers felt productivity and business output was more important. So I would say that is probably more important. That's probably been the biggest shift. But leveraging technology has not changed. Where can I bring in technology to augment the worker is still a very viable solution. Maybe, it's where I could bring it in. Where can I bring in automation for processes? People are becoming smarter with it. But I do got to preface this as well. Again, I said I'm now closer to the action, and it's also highly dependent on where you're at. I mean, if I'm in one region, East Coast, for example, people are very savvy. They're getting in there. And then I'm like in some regions on the West Coast where they're like, what? We're not doing anything like that. We're still very old traditional methods of how we got things through. So it's got to meet people where they're at with it.
Kevin, any thoughts you want to add there? Anything you're seeing on the labor crisis side of things and what technology is doing?
Yeah, I mean, Kelley, I asked her to do this with me because I know how she thinks, and it's not just the status quo, right? You have to offer workers great tools. It's been proven. The data shows they like coming to work. And one of the things I learned years ago living in warehouses that you have to believe people want to do a good job. So if I go out and back into the BlueStar warehouse and people who've been tenured, have been there 5-10 years, they show up every day wanting to do a good job. And automation is not going to replace every one of their tasks. And those that do come to work prepared to do, the good work that benefits our customers, they need good tools, right? And you almost have to think of them as athletes. Like, how would you outfit an athlete in a football team? It's like you give them the best equipment available. And it may not be a 10-year-old scanner cuts it anymore. Okay? So I think workers can show up, not all, but many, ready to do the good work of the day, and they want to be productive. And it's management's job to give them the best technology, tools, etc. It may be automation. It may be some very simple tools like a scanner, and it's probably a combination of both. And I think we're all in a good space right now because it's not going to change. Labor isn't going to go. And the problem of labor is not going away. And you just can't automate every process in a warehouse. That's the human element.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. The labor issues aren't going away. There's statistics around it. Even just as of November, the U.S. labor market indicated that the unemployment to job opens ratio, I love the ratios that they throw out there, is 0.9, which is indicating there are more jobs openings than available workers. There's still the competition for workers out there. And and we're not immune to that, being an owner of warehouses. Right. We're certainly involved in that. And I think we have seen and where Kevin was going, a little bit of a shifting of reskilling people, right? Like when you bring in automation, as we have done, we have brought in some automation into our warehouse. We didn't lose the folks that have been there for 10 years. Right. It's reskilling. And
that wasn't the goal either.
That wasn't the goal. No, the goal was to fill in the gaps of where we couldn't find the labor. Right. So we were going through a bit of a reskilling kind of an action to enable the folks that were coming in, being productive, to be productive in a more efficient, even manner. Yeah. But I'll agree with Kelley. It is interesting to see how business, has kind of changed the whole optic from output and productivity, right? Like that is the goal now. So, I guess as an employee, we had this nice nirvana of a few years of like, hey, the pendulum swung in our direction, saying, hey, work-life balance, really important, all that kind of good stuff. Swinging back the other way. Get back to work. Sit at your desk. Is that what you were saying, Kelley? That was a really nice way of saying, hey.
Well, yes. Right. I mean, that's kind of where it's going. But now here's the good thing. I mean, when we look at it, I think that there's still the OEMs and everybody out there. There's still ways to. I don't think that we could have it all, right? We can't have our cake and eat it too. But technology is out there to make, as Kevin said, to make and empower the workforce, right? To make the job and make them successful. And if we think about it, if we go back to what technology was even 10 years ago, everybody was handed the same device and you did the job the same way. And people weren't going to bring in multiple devices to do the same job. But now if we look at the options of what is available for people to do their job smarter and smarter and safer, there are options. And even bringing in one device, there are different accessories that can make it to something that is a little bit more applicable. I got to share this. I'm sorry, I'm going to share it because it was this brain thing I had the other night. And this is just to kind of go over the generationals, like thinking about generations. Like it has to exist, the evolution of the telephone or the smartphone, right? Where it started off like where you were chipping away, doing nothing and just writing, to how we evolved. And I remember whenever I got the first smartphone and it was that little flip phone and I'm typing on little numbers onto it. And then I got my first BlackBerry and I remember how I hated typing on those little buttons.
Yes. Yeah.
Then we got the first flip where it was like, I'm never going to type on a screen. I'm like, I will never have a phone where I actually want to type onto a screen. That's hysterical. Absurd.
Yeah, exactly.
And now where we are having mini computers in our hand, but think about, again, is we're digital, we're the pioneers. We're digital pioneers where we were forced to it again. And now we have the digital natives that are going to, by 2030, comprise the majority of the workforce, where they do want that. So with the software and the technology that is evolving, you're able to bring in a device that, number one, has a keyboard for the people that do prefer that keyboard, or you're able to take a device that is a flat screen that they have that. And there are platforms, it doesn't matter. It's going to give you the same output and they're about the same cost. So warehouses can say, I want a couple of these and a couple of these. And you know what? Give me a couple headsets. So you can look at it that way versus having to bring in everything at the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for humoring me, guys.
No, that's good. That resonates with me too, because as someone who, the same way, has been through that progression and went from, the no such thing as a smartphone or a mobile phone at all to, the tactile touch to the screens. I now find myself kind of wishing I could go back a little bit to the touch, like the keys version, because I don't know about you guys, but like I feel like every time I try to do something on my screen typing wise now, it's like fat finger just all over the place.
Yes,
like I can't.
Thank God for autocorrect.
Just type, just typing a simple sentence feels like a chore now.
Yes,
because it just never seems to get it right. It just seems like it's always getting worse. And there's a part of me that's like, I now I get it, because to that point, I remember started seeing devices coming out that were like these, robust mobile computers that had, 70 keys on them as well as a touchscreen. Like, well, why would you need both? But to your point, some folks are going to be more comfortable with one or the other, and you might as well have something that appeals to everybody if you need it. Again, in the future, I'm sure, probably all be touch, or, it'll be like voice activated or something instead anyway. But I like that idea that we're considering like, hey, we've got a lot of different generations that are in the labor market right now, and they're all trying to do this stuff. We know we need the technology, but we all need to kind of figure out, how each of them can work with it in their own way at the moment, instead of just shoving everybody onto one platform and say, you have to do this or get out, so. Well, Kevin, you kind of suggested this topic. You wanted us to go down this idea of the human element automation, and it's become a bit of a battle cry for Newcastle. So explain that a little bit. How is that resonating in the way that you're approaching your end users, that you're creating solutions? Maybe give us a little insight into like what you're hearing when you're out there talking to customers, let's say in supply chain manufacturing where your products are in use. What are they saying about balancing automation in their workforce?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this next week, Kelley and I will both be at ProMat, and I think I was telling you earlier, John, I'll always ask the folks that come into the booth, like, what are you looking for this weekend? A lot of times they say, I don't know. There's a lot of information here to digest. There's 50 robotics companies. There's AI. It's overwhelming. And so what I think is like you almost take a step back for those people, because the bigger enterprise companies probably have teams working on this. But if it gets to the front line at some point, the frontline workers usually don't have a say. Like they don't walk ProMat. That's what I'll often say. Like the people who are going to use these tools are not here. They have no voice, right? So management's job is to sort of seek what I call the edges of ProMat, which is where all the new cool stuff is. And a lot of times it's not sophisticated. I was telling you guys about a little cubbyhole company that just makes it real easy to store things. These are all tools that are available to the audience next week. They're not really expensive. And what we did is we went through this storytelling process. They interviewed our customers, our partners, our vendors, and they really got to understand where we fit. And what customers were telling us is like, there's a lot. Like, we don't know how to spend our money. We know we have to automate. We're just not sure how to do this and how long it's going to take. And we say, that's okay. It's like a journey, and we can help you today. We can help you tomorrow. There's always going to be that balance of automation and people working together. And I think as the barcode channel partners out there, we're going to market with this purpose, and this is our tagline. It's kind of like the future counts on productivity found in unexpected places. So every building, if I walk through BlueStar, there's a section that may not be optimized, right? And it's like the channel partner's job to help them optimize that little section by section. And it's not going to be robotics everywhere. It might just be, to Kelley's point, a tool that's a little more user-friendly. I like a keypad, because I'm a boomer, and then somebody's like, no, I don't want that. Why would I want that, right? But then they have this Swiss Army knife that just took that little department and made it 20% better for not a lot of money. And I think that's kind of the mantra I think I'd like to share with the channel partners. You have great tools at your disposal through BlueStar, and your customers may overlook them because, let's face it, barcoding has been around a long time. But I think Kelley will admit that a current device should be or is better than something that's even what, Kelley, 5 years old, 3 years old?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if it's 10% or 15% gains to help them compete more, that's adding value to the market, the supply chain that we all, let's face it, live and die by, right, in the warehousing space.
Definitely. Kelley, anything you want to add there? You said, you're pretty close to the customers. What are they telling you about automating their workforces? And maybe going back to that idea again of there's a need for this productivity and for, meeting the organization's needs, but still trying to keep that pendulum maybe a little balanced with what the workers are wanting too.
It's one of the things we're hearing a lot. I mean, first of all, I just got to say again and commend what they're doing at Newcastle and with that focus and helping the customers, because that productivity in small spaces of finding where you can make that, I just think that is so smart. Is helping people realize you don't have to go big to find it. You can find small wins and looking in small places. And you guys hit that home a lot. So I think what you guys are helping people identify is huge. A thing is maximizing your investments you already have. How can you work with different, what kind of additional software or other programs can you put on and, onto your current devices that can help your workforce work smarter? Yes, there are things that you need to, from security standpoints, there's a lot of things that are happening in our world right now that, you have to, from a data standpoint, and things like that might be the reason why you need to update your AIDC technology. And that's why you might need to be considering it if that is where you're at. But it's how do I optimize my investment and where else can I use it if I have it? So those are two things that we're looking at, or things that we're hearing most frequently. How else can I leverage this technology?
And when you think about it, what's the greatest expense that any business typically has?
It's people.
People.
Yeah.
That's right. So how do you optimize the people that you have? And these are the opportunities that are out there. And, one way to look at it is that when you think about automation and the human element of it, a lot of what we're seeing is like a decline of the manual role. So when you look at like a warehouse or a manufacturing facility, where does the automation happen? Well, it's in those, typically in those labor areas where there's a lot of repetitive actions, right? And so those are easier ones to kind of knock down, if you will. Like, this goes from here to there, point A to point B, and it does it all day long, kind of a thing. Well, can we automate that? And so that's a little bit better for the worker. And we've automated, so we've got in some efficiencies. It's a brilliant phrase, though. The future counts on productivity finds, which are everywhere. And that is so true. You can find them everywhere, and the tools are there to do that, which is why, I think that there's a certain segment is embracing robotics, because robotics is going to have a play. It's going to have a cobotic, role with humans. We're not replacing humans. We're just augmenting, that investment that's going. And then the upskill that needs to happen for the workforce in order to enable that and embrace that. So not just there, but of course the whole AI thing as well, right? Yeah. I mean, just a lot that is going on as it relates to, artificial intelligence and the use of that and making things smarter, faster, those types of things. It's really kind of fascinating to see. But again, it's just a tool, right, to use.
I agree. I mean, I'm on board with that too, the idea of like the little small wins. And I mean, I know we talk a lot about robotics. We talk a lot about AI. We're always talking about this emerging tech and these edge solutions. Don't get me wrong. Love that stuff. It's great. It's, it's writing paychecks for all of us potentially. But at the end of the day, sometimes the best solution might be something simple. Maybe it's just a slightly better barcode scanner than what you currently have. Maybe it's maybe it's a mobile device that has a, digital, physical keypad on it instead. Can be those little wins sometimes that can help you grow trust with, your customer. And maybe that means that down the road, they trust you and are more appreciative of what you have to offer, that when you do come to them suggesting, hey, maybe this is the time to incorporate robots in your business. Maybe this is the time to elevate to an AI solution. You've already helped them do some of the little things, so they might be a little more inclined to listen to you and work with you when it's time to roll out the big thing. Yeah. And I think, and we've talked about this a few times on the podcast before, and Kelley, I think this might have been part of our previous conversation with you, which is that, a little bit of automation, a little bit of technology could be the difference maker in a tight labor market of getting employees versus another company. Again,
absolutely.
Like this area that we're in here, there's a lot of warehouses around here. There's a lot of distribution. There's a lot of supply chain happening here in this Northern Kentucky tri-state area. And I have to think that there's a lot of people that are hopping from one of those companies to the other. And maybe for you to attract some young Gen Z talent or whatever that's eager to get out there and work hard, maybe having the latest and greatest, coolest devices is what's going to make the difference between you and the other distributor that's down the street potentially, who's still doing everything very old school. I mean, it's those little things that could potentially make a difference and help you win. I mean, sure, everybody can try to throw higher salaries at everyone, but maybe it's hey, you know what? Here's the salary I can offer you, but when you come to work, here's all the cool tools that you're going to get to use. Here's all the ways that we're going to make it easier for you to do your work and be more efficient and give us the kind of output we're looking for without killing your feet every day or something, or breaking your back and sending you home wondering why you're even doing this. That's the kind of stuff I think that hopefully, we're getting to, or you can make an impact on that labor market by, again, offering something to the employee, and yet at the same time still maximizing what you're doing in your business as well.
I think it's a bit of a hybrid. I mean, when you look at like what Amazon is investing in upskilling programs to train their employees. So you might come in at a more of a labor type of a role, but you're getting upskilled there so that you're into more of a technical role.
Right.
Within years, you're in more of a technical role, overseeing some of the automation and stuff like that. So it's this blend, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
when you talk about how to motivate, or, when we talk of gamification or how can I get increases, instead of doing whoever had the fastest pick or whoever did that, whenever that's not an even playing field.
Right.
You're going to have people that are going to be always the fastest because they just are. If it's who is going to upskill and give them learning opportunities, that you have curriculums or things like that. Like there's learning modules because we are going to be bringing in this new technology. And so they have either online training videos to watch and complete and have quizzes, giving people this opportunity to learn. Then they get an increase in, maybe even if it's a quarter or it's, however it can be, you're gamifying learning to get them ready for the next step. So you're investing in them simultaneously as you're getting them ready for the next technology. At the same time, you're giving them a new skill set. You're preparing them for whatever you're bringing in next. They're feeling invested in. It's just a different way to look at it. So it's not everybody has the time to think like that. So
yeah, that's true.
Being able to go to our customers and, partnering together, us being able to go in and saying, here's a solution. So us working together is a great way. I think that's one thing Kevin and I were talking about. I mean, we could go in and have a solution together, the three of us, right? Yeah. All of us just working together and saying, hey, let us identify some pockets of opportunity for you so you can think about this instead.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, as opposed to would you like to buy some new scanners, right?
Exactly.
I think if it's the phrasing that we have to work on as an industry is educating the channel, right? Where those pockets are, and sort of what the ROI is and what's the outcome and the financial impact on the business, because people don't spend money, especially right now it's a little tight, right? So you have to have a good story, and retaining workers is a very good story. It's very disruptive when you have to retrain those pickers, even at a BlueStar. I'm sure it's difficult. You have a lot of competition, John. You can walk out and go make $1 more an hour.
Yep.
But if you hand that person a 20-year-old device or a pen and paper, you're not going to stay very long.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's again, I will subscribe to this concept that all people want to do good work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A carpenter doesn't want to be handed, something that if they had some type of an air tool, they would probably use that to be more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I think, and we have that at our disposal. I think maybe it's an education process, Kelley, where we teach our partners, where those opportunities are in these buildings, and then, what's the best way to go to market.
And on the devices too. I mean, when you think about like Honeywell's getting into the use of LLMs on the device, and it's just making more efficient use of the person's time or the ability to access information to do their job better. I mean, there's just a lot happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, there's like this avalanche of possibilities and opportunities that can happen with some of these things.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about the AI of it all then, because that is I think obviously the next big potential step here. Are we looking at further dramatic shifts in how people are working because of AI? And also then, are we also making sure that we're keeping the human element in mind? Is there things we need to be paying attention to or aware of so that we don't feel like we're just rushing into, again, a new kind of solution without really considering the why we need these solutions and these options? Kevin, kick us off there. What do you think about the AI conversation?
Yeah, I haven't witnessed it and maybe Kelley has more expertise in the warehousing space, like how it's used, but I could certainly see how it could be used to do like sort of vision systems and just making like decisions about packaging and returns, for instance, right? Like, what is this? What should I do with it? But there's always going to be, I think, the human, hopefully, tiebreaker. Like, you make the final call as a worker. Right? What should I do with this? Throw it away, keep it, put it back on the line. But I can see AI taking away a lot of the redundant decision making that probably drains people on a daily basis. But then it's that every sixth decision is required to be made by a human, and that takes some of the load off of them, and then it actually inspires them. Right? That's just my vision.
Kelley, what about you? I mean, I know as Dean kind of pointed out, Honeywell's doing a great job with incorporating AI into your devices and figuring out ways to make people more efficient with that. How are you viewing this conversation? Are we is there potential pitfalls to doing the AI thing when it comes to supply chain and automation, or do you feel like there's some real potential here?
Well, I think there's definitely potential. I mean, there's always going to be the watch outs right now because, I think that there's a bit of mistrust in AI at the moment. But, if you're doing it smart, and of course we're doing it smart, and I think any business is going to do it wisely and use it safely. Security is going to be something that's going to be watched, and you're going to have quality checks on it. It's, not everything is going to be, we're not going to just use it for one thing and then say, oh, that's Word. It's good. We're going to do quality checks and engineer. But I think that, at least the way that we're looking at it, it is to definitely improve performance and the, productivity or just the worker experience. That goes from anybody, ourselves internally, that goes throughout the industry, from retail or in the warehouse, where we're trying to, again, mimic how people are using it in their everyday life. Why try to reinvent the wheel and have someone have to come up with something and be retrained on? So like the AI agent, if I know that, the one thing that we're working on right now, and it's being able to communicate across, think about in a warehouse, we have people with multi-languages and you have a built-in translator that I'm communicating from one language to the other. Perfect. And when I'm assigned a task and I have to troubleshoot, and all of a sudden it pops up and the manual is in there and it is walking me through it step by step with videos, and it's already in there multimodal and it's helping me troubleshoot. Great. Being able to use that kind of technology for that, to me, that's great. But it also goes into the offices. It helps with the sales teams. It helps across the line, and it doesn't replace, it just helps us streamline, because if I just even think about it from a personal use with AI, the sheer amount of things that we have coming at us, I don't use it to do my job. It just helps me streamline a little bit and organize. It's not doing, I didn't use this for my answers today.
But you could have, yeah.
I could have, but there's just so many things that we have coming at us anymore. It does help with organization. So.
Yeah, I think high level, I think people are over indexing for AI, if I could use a modern term for it, meaning there's going to be a human element. We found that it just goes back to our use of ChatGPT. that was like an oh shoot moment. It's like, oh my God, this thing's pretty. And then you looked at it, and it's like, no, this thing's not. It's hallucinating.
Right.
It's not as good as I thought.
It's not perfect.
It still needs human intervention.
It's not copy and paste.
So I think we're over-indexing a little bit on the capabilities of AI. Will it be revolutionary? Will it have an impact across? Of course it will.
Yep.
But I think that as humans, the human element is not going to go away.
Right.
I think that when you can get down to like the compute power. I've been on listening to a couple podcasts around just the compute necessary to do some of the things that everybody keeps talking about. It gets very granular, but it's very real. I mean, like, you have to build these huge data centers, which, by the way, have to be right next door to huge power plants in order to make all this very big stuff happen. And then I don't know if you saw, but OpenAI is now making it available where $20,000 a month, you can rent their GPUs to run your scientific, you name it, whatever, right? And so I can see AI being used for that. That's a good use. If we can get to solving cancer faster by renting the GPUs for $20,000 a month, okay,
yes,
I'm in for that.
It,
but is that going to really affect the shop floor? Probably not.
Right.
So I think that there's going to be this gradual use of AI and making everything better. Still going to be a human factor there. So it's a really interesting question about the how or the why. I don't know that we're rushing into the how. I think everybody kind of sees what it could do, but to me, I think the human element's going to be around.
They're not always asking.
But there's good things.
Whys,
there's good things that are happening out there. I mean, humans working collaboratively with AI through such things as like digital twins. I mean, why wouldn't it make sense to create a digital model of some problem you're trying to solve and do it in the virtual world first, making a lot of the decisions there before you move in? I mean, to me, that's like genius, right? I mean, why wouldn't we use for that kind of a thing? So anyway, there's my take.
Kelley, I'm glad you brought up the the translation thing or whatever, because I just that's one of those things, the Star Trek Universal Translator.
Right.
That's one of those things.
I
just want to get a little bit closer to that, where you just
closer to that.
I think you're there.
I was going to say, Dean has definitely used AI for some really cool images. So
yes. Oh, yes.
If nothing else, he's like, the king of image generating.
Not me.
AI.
That'd be James Cordy. All props to James Cordy.
He just looks good standing in front of
a shout out because
for sure. It's scary good what they can generate.
It is scary good.
Yeah,
I don't know
for sure.
I want some of his prompts that he's entering in.
No doubt. He's a prompt scientist. Yes.
Yeah. You got to get that engineering aspect. Which again, though, there's that human element.
Yeah.
Because any Joe Schmo can go to an LLM and say, "Give me a picture of this."
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, and you're going to get
something. Because when I first started, can I get?
Yeah, go for it.
I said, "Show me a picture of a baseball player drinking a beer on the moon." I mean, that's the schmo thing to do.
Right.
What did it do? It generated a dude, but it wasn't
right.
Great.
It's not. It wasn't that great.
No.
The lighting wasn't all that. Anyone who would see it would be like, "Yeah, this is clearly
AI.
That slop, that AI slop that they talk about." It takes humans that understand a little bit about things, that understand lighting and understand design to give it the little nudge it takes.
But there's a new job. Prompt scientist. Though that phrase didn't exist 2 years ago. What? Now it's like a legit job.
Yeah.
I'm sure people have it at advertising agencies and stuff like that. It is truly a skill to be able to manipulate these Gen AIs in a way that you need them.
Exactly.
So, anyway,
so I appreciate these, practical and applicable use cases where we're making sense of figuring out how to use it. Again, the translation stuff, the just having access to it's no different than right now. Like if you're trying to troubleshoot something at home, you usually just go to YouTube and find a video of it. Well, what if it's just a little bit faster and easier in your workplace, where instead of going to YouTube, on your device, you're just talking into a microphone, and saying like, "Hey, this is broken. I need access. I need to figure out how to fix it." And AI is automatically processing that, giving you some steps, walking you through it right there on the spot, and you're back to work in no time. That's the little stuff that I think makes sense about incorporating AI without going the over-indexing route of trying to figure out like, where can I shove it into your workflow today on somebody who's otherwise doing everything just fine without it. So.
Yeah.
All right.
It is exciting, though. I mean, just kind of go down that path real quick. Kelley or Kevin, we're all going to have our own personal little LLMs at some point in time, and I guess you can even start programming them to have an attitude like Grok.
True. Yep.
So like in your use case there, if it's like, oh man, I got to ask my personal assistant, how do I whatever do this thing in plumbing thing. Yeah. are you okay if it snaps back at you like, well, here's how you do it? No, by the way, I told you this 3 years ago.
Sure, yeah. Like I want like the Iron Man like AI, like the Jarvis or Friday,
a little bit of an attitude or a little bit of
okay, boss, I already helped you with this. I did this already. What do you think you're doing? You know, but,
Kelley, are you going for that kind or a little less on the attitude? I don't know.
No, it's going less on the attitude because I do not need to be fighting with a computer. I've got 2 kids and a husband. That is enough.
Yeah.
I want the attitude, Dean. Okay.
I got you. That is so fair right there.
I want an AI tool that'll do my expenses after ProMat for me.
Nice. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh my God.
That has to be covered. That's got to. I imagine that's a short lift. Yeah. Somebody's got to be working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got AI checking our invoices now, or our expenses now. I'm like, come on.
Oh man.
Well, that could be a bad thing.
Exactly. Careful what you ask for, Kevin.
Boy.
Yeah, that could go the wrong route. All right. Well, hey, in a moment, we're going to talk a little bit more about leaning into AI and automation and what you guys are doing at your companies. Before we do that, a quick note about what's happening around BlueStar Nation.
Yeah.
So you may have noticed if you spent any time, playing around on the web that we revamped BlueStarInc.com last year.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Shout out to James Cordy and our amazing Marcom team.
Yes.
That really
heavy
did
lift.
A great job on overhauling our website in a relatively short amount of time, and I think it looks pretty damn good. But hey, it keeps getting better. So we've recently added a new industries and technologies tab.
Yes, we have.
Where you can find videos, ebooks, case studies, core product brochures for like field service, retail hospitality, POS, supply chain, you name it. We got some really good stuff out there. So as well as doing some deep dives with our partners into curated content for ADC, for digital signage, for POS, RFID, networking connectivity.
Yep.
Another big one we've launched recently. So it's a great way to explore what BlueStar is doing for our partners and what we have to offer to meet your customers' needs. So go to BlueStarInc.com. If you haven't been there in a while, go find the industries and technologies tab. Of course, I'll drop a link in the show notes too and see what we got going on there. And let us know if there's anything you'd like us to be doing differently or help you out.
For sure.
And for that matter, let us know also about what you like about this podcast.
There you go. If you got an idea like Kevin did.
Yeah, if you've been enjoying BlueStar Nation, to your point, if you've got an idea what you hear about on the show and you want to volunteer yourself to come on or volunteer a Kelley to come on instead, you got to let us know. So like and subscribe, leave us comments if you're watching on YouTube, leave us reviews if you're listening on a podcast platform of your choice. Check out our BlueStar Nation blog, and as always, send your ideas into us. You can always find us on all the BlueStar socials, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., or email us nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, let's wrap up starting with a little VAR value here. And, again, I want to tap into you guys because I appreciate throughout this conversation, it's very clear that the two of you enjoy working together and that Newcastle and Honeywell have very similar philosophies for how you're going out to market and addressing the human element of automation to, again, put that out there. And you're putting a lot of thought into technology and that augmentation aspect. So how has thinking about that and really leaning into the human aspect helped your companies really grow? And what lessons do you think VARs can take away from that approach? Kevin, why don't you kick us off here?
Well, a lot of the storytelling process is self-serving, right? We're all trying to create revenue for our businesses. And what we learned is that most people in warehousing and factories, they have to at least think about automation, right? And they may not have budget for it, but they at least understand that. So as a group in the ADC space, we'd want to tie into that. It's about $190 billion, which is a lot of money, right? And again, those people are like looking for options, everything from fully blown automated systems that cost 7 figures to some of the tools we talked about earlier. And I think the way that we go to market here is to go back to the productivity factor, and like all of our customers have hidden potential that we can extract, and we have great tools to help them find it. And a lot of it is very affordable and very easy to integrate. I think that's where we can add value, regardless of the economy.
Kelley, your thoughts there? How is Honeywell's approach to automation and the human element? How's that affecting your business, and what do you think VARs can take away from that?
The approach is go in and help them identify where is it really the opportunities lie and where they need to focus first. Don't try to use the old term, talk about aging ourselves, boiling the ocean. And, where are you going to be able to get the small wins first? and be open-minded that what your solution is might not be the right one.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to bring in the right solution, even if it's not yours. Know your partners, know who else is out there. That goes a long way. And that is the approach that we do take in Honeywell. We will go and talk about all viable options, even if it is not ours. Of course, we want it to be ours. But if we go in there and we see that it's not going to be us, we will give recommendations. We really try to encourage our teams to go in to look at what they're trying to accomplish, what the true problem is, and not lead with a solution first mentality. Let's not go with the problem first or product first. Like, hey, here is our new widget. What do you think? You want it? Mm-hmm. It is listen, identify what the true issue is, because they might not even know what the true issue is. They might think it's this, but as you go through in your experience in the industry, you might identify, you know what, that's really not what the problem is. Mm. If you tweak this and just do this little thing, you don't need all this. It's going to get you a lot further.
Love it.
Yeah. I know that might not help everybody, but that goes a long way, and people will call you back.
Yep.
I think that's sage advice.
I love the humility, right? I mean, because that is so true. That's what this industry was built on, doing the right thing at the end of the road type of a thing. And there's so much happening. I'll just refer to it again, the avalanche of things that people are trying to do. And how humble is it to say, well, you know what? Maybe we don't have the right solution, but I guarantee you what a company like Honeywell or Newcastle are doing, they're learning from, the new that is coming in. And okay, so it works over here. How can we embrace this as well for other partners in our ecosystem? It's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're walking in with an agenda of what you want to sell and what you want to get out of that conversation, you've probably already said
gone are those days, dude.
Failure.
Yeah,
you just
unless you're a knife salesman or something like that. I don't know. No, you're buying this Ginsu or whatever. Remember back in the day?
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right, good stuff. All right, well, let's wrap up as always with what's on our radar. This is the fun part of the show. We get to talk about something in the world of tech, innovation, science, business, or just something in the news we feel like chatting about today. Kelley, kick us off here. What's on your radar right now?
My background prior to coming over to this side of the world, I've worked a lot of years in the food and beverage industry, and I still do love to watch it, but it's a merge. So I now like to watch how technology has crept into the commercial restaurant industry.
Okay.
And just to, see how the two marry. And I did catch wind of this new robot that is, it's called ARC. It is autonomous robotic kitchen.
Oh,
and I really found it interesting, especially for places like hospitals and stuff. It is a self-standing robot that can put out 70 meals an hour. It does it all.
Wow.
It sanitizes, it's food safety, it's everything. And I mean, talk about, labor's always been an issue there as well, as you think about where hospitals and places like that are located. Very hard to get people to come and work in that particular location. And, the pay was, again, not great. So it's really interesting for me to see how technology like that, like a robot that comes in and it's hitting all the marks from food waste to sanitation to food portioning to actually putting out supposedly decent tasting food. I haven't tried it, but being able to do all of that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is it in a box? Is it like a...
No, it is an actual...
It's a huge...
It is it is a robotic arm that is pulling food out, putting it into the right type of... It's pulling the ingredients.
Yep.
It does hot and cold food.
Nice.
And it actually puts it in. It's using AI. It is pulling out recipes. You actually would put in what you want in an app.
Specific.
You pull the menu. So there's recipes already programmed.
I gotcha. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you could customize it even. I want this without this. It will pull the items, it preps the food, and then it puts it out like a vending machine into a dish.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
And then it self-sanitizes itself.
Right.
And then it preps the next dish.
Moves on to the next one, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
I like it. Yeah.
That beats my fry guy that I saw at NRF. It was just doing fry. It was just
Flippy?
Flippy. Yes. Flippy. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. All right, Kevin, what's on your radar right now?
I did partake in those fries, Dean, a couple of times because we were the next aisle over.
Oh my God, they smelled so good. So good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I guess speaking of NRF and like the future shopping experience in store, I guess walking that show again, a lot of technology, and I don't know, I'm almost going back to thinking like, how much interaction do people want when they buy things, right? Because you have a self checkout, you have a kiosk, you've got like mirrors that like show what you should be wearing. It's kind of crazy, but I think mobile checkout is going to grow. I think what I'm learning from a project I did with a major retailer is that they really want to capture people right where they want to be. Like, and it's almost like, I don't know if it's ingenuous or not, but it's like, hey, you're thinking about buying that thing. Would you like to buy it right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know if it's intrusive or not, but I think it's like people have such short attention spans, and they want to get in and get out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I know you guys, a lot of your business is POS, and you're probably seeing that a lot more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I think that the future checkout process is going to become very different as time evolves.
Yeah. I would agree with that. As you were talking, though, I was envisioning a used car salesman walking around with a mobile device. Like the pendulum can go too far the other way, right? Like, hey, you ready to buy? Hey, you ready to buy? Hey, you ready to buy? Get that thing out of my. I think that's right. That's what you're. Oh no, don't want to be there.
The AI on my device that scans you when you walked in says that you have 2 kids and blah blah blah. Let's go look at some minivans. You know, like no, knock it off.
No, let's not do that.
I'm having a midlife crisis. I want a sports car.
How did your AI not realize that?
Yeah, exactly.
Dang it. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Oh, man. All right,
Dean, what about you?
Well, you know, we often talk about crystal balls and predicting the future and stuff like that, but nobody
always works out so well.
Nobody really calls us out on our predictions, anyway. So anyway, this was a couple months ago. I stumbled across an article that laid out predictions about 2025 from 100 years ago. You know, right? So you hit these marks like 2025. It's a big year, right?
Right.
Okay. So what were they saying 100 years ago? Well, there are a couple of funny things that came out. The future looked ugly, according to Albert Wiggum, an American psychologist at the time, according to his calculations. And he went through this whole calculations. Homely, dull people were having more children than beautiful, intelligent people. So, quote, if we keep progressing in the wrong direction, as we've been doing, American beauty is bound to decline, then there won't be a good-looking girl to be found 100 years from now.
Wow.
This is like what the people were saying back then. How about advances in aging? Thanks to science, people will live to be 150 years old. So Sir Ronald Ross, who's that guy? Well, he won the 1902 Nobel Prize in Medicine. He indicated that miraculous progress will not stop. A great scientist at the Pasteur Institute of Paris has said that in 100 years' time, man and women shall live to be the age of 150. Yeah, so can we call that one?
He didn't know about fast food or prepackaged foods and all the other terrible things that are destroying us back then. So
that's right.
That was an optimistic point of view.
Yeah. H.G. Wells said back then, we all know, right? The Time Machine, Invisible Man, War of the Worlds, that whole thing. He stated in 100 years, there will not be numerous nations, but only 3 great masses of people: the United States of America, the United States of Europe, and China.
Well, he's not that far off. I think that's how certain world powers would like things to play out.
Right.
So
we're going to call that 2/3, okay?
Say like he may have been maybe 100 years early on that, but he might not be terribly far off from at least from an economic and structural standpoint potentially.
Yeah. Just a couple more. These are whimsical type ones, but there was Archibald Lowe. He was a scientist back in the day. He said that in the future, in 100 years, wake up time, a very useful service will be the radio alarm clock. Signals will be sent out in frequent intervals on different wavelengths. So if you want to wake up at 6 a.m., you set your radio alarm clock to get the 6 a.m. signal. Right? Are you following me here? So it's that didn't work out.
It worked like 40 years ago, maybe. I guess sort of. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like setting your alarm, but it's setting it to the the radio frequency that you want.
What I always think about these things is like if you showed somebody 100 years ago one of these things.
Okay, well, there I'm going with that.
Their mind would be just obliterated.
So Dr. A.R. Wentz, professor at the Lutheran Theological Seminary, did say people would use a pocket-sized apparatus for communications to see and hear each other without being in the same room.
That guy was from the future.
Yeah, I think there's your doppelganger or whatever. Your whatever. It called out the future.
That guy had time traveled to our time, but only got to spend like 20 minutes here and saw someone on FaceTime and was like, "What is that?"
Yeah. Had to go back.
That's the future. Yeah.
So there are your predictions from 100 years ago. Some good, some not so good. What's on your radar, John?
Stuff. All right. Well, hey, we've done enough mining here on our planet, even though there's always more to do. So now we're apparently starting to talk about mining the moon.
Mining the moon, yes. What can we find up there?
Which apparently is in a big, we're in a race with China, as we are with everything else, to potentially work on that.
Yep.
And there's a lot of private companies that are looking for contracts. Now, this article obviously doesn't really get into what we can potentially get out of the moon. There's obviously a lot of rare elements, that we can potentially get into there. But also the bigger question of what's going to happen when we do it, and are we going to think through, just like we were talking today, are we going to think through the consequences potentially of getting into this? So first of all, a couple things to note that this article notes: an extremely high cost of just getting water and or fuel to the moon.
Oh, for sure.
It says at the point that you get water to the moon, it basically costs about the same amount as gold by the time it arrives on a per cubic, weight or whatever.
Absolutely.
Mass.
An ounce of water and an ounce of gold.
Yeah, essentially the same thing in the time it takes you, the cost it takes you to get it to the moon.
Got it.
Space dust. This is one I'd never heard of or thought of, but apparently in the process of mining, a bunch of space dust could be kicked up.
Sure.
That would make areas of the moon brighter and or darker depending on where it's at.
That makes sense.
Because the underlayer underneath that dust is going to potentially be a little bit brighter because it hasn't had that layer.
Yeah.
And would be a little bit brighter for us from a viewing standpoint.
Okay.
But then also depending on where that dust settles or where it could potentially cloud, could darken other areas of the moon
for sure.
over time.
Yeah.
That's another consideration. I hadn't thought of that either. How do we protect workers in space?
Well, I was going to go there. Do we have workers up there?
I mean, we will.
A lot of it's going to be robots, but are these upskilled
there's
people
going
that
to be
are
actual miners and stuff up there? And what labor considerations do we have to think about? Is there a space moon mining union or something?
Right.
What is it? What happens if someone is working and decides I can't do this or this isn't the job for me? You can't just. There's not going to be a shuttle.
I quit.
Yeah, you can't just be home by the evening, walk out the door and say, screw you, boss,
that doesn't work.
And go back home. No, you're kind of stuck there potentially for months on end. And not to mention health hazards. Is there health hazards maybe we haven't considered? They were talking about radiation exposure.
Yeah, there's no atmosphere up there, so,
Yeah, so a lot of stuff that this is one of those things where I think there's a lot of people thinking about, what can we get out of the moon that can make us some money, but not also thinking about what is it going to take to make that happen and what kind of problems might we cause on the back. Hopefully people will be thinking those through before we get to that, heavy duty mining. But
absolutely.
Something to think about still.
Maybe we can use some AI to figure some of that stuff out,
maybe.
Right? I don't know.
Or AI is just going to be thinking about its, what benefits it and not really worry about.
At the very least, can you imagine how Caterpillar owns the manufacture of all these?
Right.
They're all yellow gear. Can we come up with a different color on the moon?
Yeah.
Point. See all these little yellow things rolling around.
I think that's probably low on the consideration.
Low on the consideration. I'm just throwing it on the table, brother.
All right, that is what's on our radar. Kevin Ledversis, Kelley Wood, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Appreciated having you on the pod. It's a good conversation. And hey, listen, if you want to get a little bit of automation into your customers' workforces, please reach out to the fine folks over at Newcastle Honeywell. They'd be happy to help you out there and partner up together to get you the solutions that you need as well.
Absolutely.
So, all right, it's time for us to check out for the day. We will see you around the nation. Thanks, everybody, for watching.